by the way, if I'm speaking too quietly, or too fast, or too slow, or just look weird, throw something at me. All right, so quick intro to me. I've been programming in Python since I was about 14, mainly using it for like Blender scripting and greetings to various planets. But it's within the last 3 years that I've actually started using it seriously and professionally. So I work at Ubity. We're a hosted voice over IP provider in Montreal. I'm the user interface designer and one of the programmers. Outside of work, I try to be really involved in the startup scene in Montreal. So about 2 years ago with some friends, I helped found Startupifier, which is a group that tries to get students involved in startups. Among other things, we've thrown a couple hackathons that I know at least some of you have been to. So anyway, with that, let me introduce you to my startup project, Hopscotcher. Oh, wait, I need to do this. Premise of the idea is that day-to-day life should be more fun. It should be like playing a game. So you get points and level up, except it should also be social, where it integrates with Facebook and Twitter. It's a mobile app. It's social, it's gamified, it's location-based. Tech-wise, it's a lightweight mobile client that communicates to the server through a REST API, so yes, it's also in the cloud. Now, let's say you go to lunch. Everyone eats. Why should you be rewarded for that? The way you get rewarded is you do what we call hopping in. So every place you go, you hop in. You go to a new sushi place, awesome. You hop in and you get 10 points. And the idea is if you hop in enough places to one clip, if you hop in enough times to the same place, you can be the Bunny King. I myself am the Bunny Grandmaster. So how many of you know Foursquare? Okay, very good. For those of you who don't, that was Foursquare. So that's not my real project, in case you hadn't guessed. But it does kind of set the stage for what I'm actually working on. And I also like making fun of startups. It's kind of like making fun of hipsters, but even more elitist. Let me introduce you to Fabulous Dan. Like, no, I'm actually being serious now. This is really what I'm doing. Fabulous Dan is your man. He is your band's #1 fan. He's all that and many other fabulous things. So Fabulous Dan is a marketing platform for bands and their fans. It's trying to get fans more involved in their fandom. It is mobile, it is location-based, it is social. Basically, it's everything I just described without rabbits and a little more. So let's say you've got a band that's coming out with a new album. They have a really kick-ass new single that they want to promote. So what they do is they take the drum tracks, the guitar tracks, the vocals, and they scatter them throughout the city on a virtual map. So let's say you put the drums in the tam-tams, you put the guitars down in the old port, the vocals in the plateau, whatever. So then what happens, and keep in mind this is just GPS data on a virtual map. You're not actually putting anything physically anywhere. So then what happens is you open up your phone if you're one of those cool people who has a smartphones. And you pull it up, there's a map. And on that map you see where all these different pieces are scattered. You go around, if you happen to be in the area, you can collect the piece. It goes into your inventory. As you continue to collect all the pieces, once you finally have the whole thing, you can listen to the complete song, download it, share it with your friends, promote it, all that stuff. So yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff about it, like getting points and becoming a top fan, but it's really only so interesting to talk about. Let me see if I can actually possibly show you a very quick demo of what I have thus far. That is a phone. Okay, see, magic map. Blue dots are the pieces. So you go in and over to the button. Collect it. Goes into your inventory. And you just got 5 points, 25 points, etc., etc. Go back. Next, please. And it says here, you've just unlocked a reward, the complete song. So you go here, and in theory, it's not implemented yet, but in theory, you can click it and play it and listen to it and download it and all that great stuff. So it should be done in about 2 to 3 weeks. It actually kind of has to, because anybody know the artist Patrick Watson?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
Down
we're
with
actually...
the protest.
What's that?
Down with the protest.
Yeah. So we're actually launching with him. He heard about it, he's really interested. He's coming out with a new album soon. So we've kind of got to get on track with that. So that's pretty cool. Oh, wait. Patrick Watson! All right, so now enough of that. Let's get down with the good, green, slithery goodness. Green, slithery goodness. This is actually a real movie. I found it this morning when I was putting together the slideshow. I think we need to have a party with beer and watch it. And okay. So anyway, when I started developing this, I've been doing it in my off hours from work. So I don't have a lot of time to work on it, and it has to get done quickly. So primary, absolute #1 prerequisite was speed of development. So that's why Python is really nice. More than anything, I know it. I use it every single day at work. It is fast to develop with. There's a lot of great libraries out there. Granted, I'm interested in other things. It would be really fun, for example, to like write this entire thing in C, a web app in C. I mean, that's cool, right? Yes. But it's not very fast. So Python it is. So after that, you know, it is a web app. I knew that the requirements for what the web app are pretty simple. It's a lightweight API. There's not a lot of like heavyweight web browsery stuff going on. So something like a framework like Django is kind of overkill. We use pylons at work. It's also really nice, but it's still kind of a bit on the overkill side, and it's a lot of setup required. So I started looking at the micro frameworks. I think that's the next slide. Yay. So micro frameworks do like absolute minimal feature set. They do routing and dispatching and not a lot else, just what you need. They're really fast to set up. Two of the main ones that I really like are Flask and Bottle. I admit I also looked at CherryPy just because it's kind of neglected. People seem to leave it out. But there's a reason for that. So between the two, I initially picked Flask because it has a really good selection of libraries that handle stuff like user management, sessions, permissions, all that stuff. It's easily installable. It's really quick to use. I actually ended up switching and rewriting on Bottle. Flask has a little bit too much magic in it. But anyway, I'm not really talking about that. So use Bottle, even though I have it crossed out. So now since I'm working on a startup, that means I'm very buzzword friendly. I mean things like no SQL. It's web scale. Nobody's seen the video? Come on. You've seen the video?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You didn't laugh.
I was looking at the camera.
Yeah. Okay, so in particular Mongo. I've heard a lot of really neat things about Mongo. I thought it would be fun to try it out. They have a really pretty website. But again, speed of development. I know my SQL. I know SQL Alchemy. So as much as maybe Mongo scales better, or I don't know, it would have been fun to find out, I decided to go with SQL Alchemy. And on that, actually, a side note, scalability. I know probably a lot of people here will disagree with me, but STFU, I'm the one talking, you can throw things at me later. Scalability right now doesn't matter. I mean, we haven't even... Scalability, right down, it does not matter. We haven't launched yet. There's nothing that's actually been built. We're launching with Patrick. I don't know exactly how many fans he has, but at least right now we're launching in Montreal, but it's going to be 1,000 people. When it gets to the point of needing to scale, my basic idea is get shit done as quickly as possible. Don't do an absolutely stupid job, and make sure that when you have to re-implement things, then it's not going to be like a complete rewrite and you can start from scratch. So that's why I'm not too worried about scalability right now. SQL alchemy may not be as fast as writing queries by hand, but it's a lot faster to develop and change things. Beyond that, yes. So beyond that, on the back end, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm using build-out, which is way cooler than virtual env. You don't have to like source something or anything. It does a whole bunch of other cool stuff. I also use Vim. So then we get to the front end. That's where things get at least a little more interesting. You've got two main platforms, right? You've got iOS and Android. On iOS, you can basically develop with Objective-C. I think you can throw in C++ or C, I'm not positive. And then on Android, you've got Java and C++. So when you go to write a mobile application, there's kind of two ways you can approach it. You can write the native application in those two languages, or two options there. Or you can write a mobile version of your web app that you load through a web browser. It's not an app, it just loads and works on a phone and it looks okay. So that was kind of the initial thing I was thinking would work for something that had to get done really quickly, but I looked at other options too. If you're going to do a native app with Objective-C and Java, C++, you're writing in a lower level language, it's going to take longer. You've also got to develop two different code bases and keep them in sync. You've also got to know the SDKs that go along with each platform, and that's not really a super handy, easy task. A lot of times, like a lot of the startups I know, they actually go out and find individual developers for each platform and have them develop at the same time. But at the same time, you've got speed, you've got a very native feel, you've got a real app that goes in the store. But for me, it was going to take too long. The problem with the web app is, again, you're loading it through a browser. It doesn't feel like a native app. It's slow sometimes. It doesn't have access to everything. And I did need access to GPS, and that may be spotty. So options for developing with Python, because I really wanted to stick with Python on the mobile side. Android has something called the Android scripting environment. It is basically not good at all. It lets you load Python scripts or Ruby, whatever. It exposes the API to these scripting languages. But you have to load the script and run it, and then it has to download the interpreter and various libraries to go along with it. So it's not really an ideal solution for actually deploying anything. I also thought, at least for Android, since it's Java, that maybe there would be a way to run Python on the JVM. But it's not the JVM standard thing. It's the Dalvik JVM, and somebody's been working on a port for that, but I think they died. And it's not done. And then on iOS, it gets even worse, because this has to run on Android and iOS. For something like this, there's no question about that. There's basically nothing for iOS and Python that I know of. You're making a face, and do you know something? No? Okay. There even used to be a clause in the user license agreement on iOS that said, you have to write the Objective-C with Xcode on a Mac, and nothing. You can't embed an interpreter. Little screwball.
These in terms of it reduced to, you have something to download external code. However, there
correct.
are people
It that has been removed at this point. Yay. But bad taste anyway. Anyway, finally,
Could use Flash on iOS.
Yeah, I looked into that. That would be as well, no, that would be as slow for me. Oh no, I have no issue with that. If you're trying to provoke.
No, it's Flash. Flash.
Yeah.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah, for me, I'm not familiar enough with Flash, so that's going to be the same
It's a joke.
problem. Okay. Well, anyway. Distraction. So I found this thing called PhoneGap. It's an excellent. Yay. This is really cool. Basically, you write your applications in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. What PhoneGap does is it wraps a browser around your code locally, and it exposes parts of the API. So you can get stuff like local storage and the camera, the camcorder, play audio, GPS location. It's open source. It's distributed under the MIT license. Adobe actually just bought the company. They've promised to keep it open source, so fingers crossed. Hopefully that means they're going to do a lot of cool stuff with it. Yay. Okay, so I'm doing some kind of interesting stuff with the integration. Most of the app, all of the logic still, even for the mobile client, is written on the server, written in Python. The mobile client is really, really lightweight. It communicates through REST API, doing basic posts and gets. And even parts of the UI are in Python itself. The way I'm doing that is I've got the server backend. I pass the JSON config file that has stuff like which URL should this button post to, what's the icon, what's the text, and then that sends out to the mobile client and can render that. So I'll edit that one. I'll shift over here. So there's oh, that's weird. Okay, so there's a quick example of like one of the main tab menus down at the bottom. This is really bad right now and hard coded and ugly, but proof of concept. It returns a JSON dump of a list, dictionary items. I actually translate them here, and that's really cool because I don't know if there's even a get text implementation for JavaScript, and I don't want to run it on a mobile platform anyway. So you actually do all the translation, all of this stuff on the back end. That means you can add new languages, you can fix typos, you can do all this really cool stuff, and just you never have to update the mobile client. You just update the server and it pushes out. They're constantly grabbing the newest version of these things. So I actually want to develop this idea a little bit further. Right now it's really, really simplistic. As you saw, it spits out menu items. Most of the mobile client is still written hard-coded. This is the functionality that we provide, and that's it. But I want to do something where maybe you could almost develop an entire mobile application just by sending out JSON config data. And it says this button gets here, this list is populated by this URL here. So if you could build an entire platform where you kind of generalize this data format and say, hey, we've got a map on this page, and these are the list of items. And when you click this item, go back to the server, grab this, open this pop-up. If you could do all that with just JSON, or some other thing, I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not going to work on this right now because I've got to get this app done. I've got to get Fabulous Dan done. But when I get done with it, I'm going to revisit this idea. And it's something I would love to develop, love to release as open source. And if any of you are mobile devs, I would love to talk to you, like at Benelux afterwards, and see what your thoughts are on it, see if you think it's viable or if it's just bullshit. So, with that, that's it. Thanks for listening. Keep an eye out for Fabulous Dan in the coming weeks. We're going to be doing a beta test party. Hopefully we're going to have Patrick there to like sign shit and I don't know what. But